One. All right. Hey man, thank you for being on with me today. It's really a pleasure to have someone that not only when I went to school with, but someone that's as cool as you. And so, if you could go ahead and just introduce yourself, brother.
Yeah, man. My name's Anthony. As you know, for the listeners who may not know, my name's Anthony. Me and you, we went to high school together. Sarah High School,
Oh,
Gardena.
yes, sir.
Back in the days.
It's back in the days, man.
Back in the days. Dude,
Yeah,
it's been a
man.
while. That was
Yeah,
like 5 years ago.
yeah. It's been a minute. You were a class above me,
Yeah.
So
I was a class of 2016.
2016, yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, the crazy thing about it is, we didn't really know each other. I mean, we knew each other, but it was kind of like, oh, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Just walking by class, just said what's up. It was that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's a pleasure to be able to rekindle and be able to reconnect back with you, especially in times like this. I feel like we need to discuss times like these, bro, and it's everything that's going on. But man,
100%.
so bro, first off, man, what made you choose San Francisco, man?
So long story short, man, when I was looking to apply to schools, um, straight out of high school, San Francisco is basically the school that offered me the most financial aid. So I just figured, and originally my major was finance. My whole reasoning for coming to San Francisco was the tech industry was booming, Silicon Valley. I figured needed people to manage their money. And so I figured like as a finance major, considering the fact that they were providing me with the most money, most financial aid, I just figured it would be stupid of me not to come here, because it would just basically set me up in so many ways for the future, like in every way, shape, and form. And then when I got out here, uh, to basically get into like how I basically got into software engineering, um, and
Yeah, but for those who don't
yeah.
know, Anthony, he's actually a software engineer major. He's actually, I mean, what going into like just the what made you choose software engineering? That's just what boggles my mind is like I thought about going into software engineering, but the thought of just coding and stuff was just not for me. But like, what like attracted you to just such an industry?
So honestly, I was always super interested in coding since like high school and stuff like that. It was just like you said, I was just like super intimidated, just by looking at it. Like it was just so confusing, and people would always talk about, yeah, you need to learn like three or four different languages and this and that. You need to understand like the tech stack, all these different technical terms that I had no idea what they meant when I was originally like looking into coding in high school. Just basically intimidated like the fuck out of me, and like I wanted nothing to do with it. So for me, I always figured like for programming you probably needed to be some sort of genius, that you needed to be like super good with math, this and that. But then I got to USF, was doing finance, quickly realized that a lot of the finance jobs are really being pushed out by computers. And within the next like 5 to 10 years, I'd say a lot of those jobs will basically be obsolete. They won't
Bro,
exist, and they will basically be done by computers. And that's basically something that one of my professors literally told me, after class one day. He was like, I 100% recommend that you get into computing, in some way, shape, or form, because at the end of the day, that's really where the industry is headed. Um, so there was that.
wow.
Number two, Number two was I met this guy because I had always been really interested in stocks and trading like that. Um, and I always really wanted to get into it. And I met this guy my sophomore year. His name was Blade. Blade Nelson. Shout out that guy. Because long story short, he basically put me on, to not only stocks but to programming. He kind of like sort of like pushed me in that direction, in the sense that he basically, I was super into blockchain, and I was like, what exactly is that? And this guy had basically been programming since he was like 12 years old, right?
Right.
So he knew the ins and outs of basically like everything. So I basically asked him like, what is blockchain? He basically broke it down for me, and it wasn't as complicated as I thought it was. The way that he made it, the way that he broke it down, essentially. And he was just like, yeah, man. He was just like, honestly, he was like, you should really look into programming this and that. And he showed me the stock trading algorithm that he had created, that basically automated the whole process for him of buying and selling stocks. So he basically all he did was run the program, sat back, and he made money.
He's hybriding between his own software engineering and using that to his advantage to be able to profit off the stock market.
Exactly. And I saw
Wow.
that, and I saw that, and I was like, dude, if I can basically do or replicate in even the slightest form what that dude's doing right now, right? Like that alone is amazing, right? Like I that's I
Yeah,
don't even know how else to put it, you
and
know.
that's
So
crazy. That's crazy. You say that. You're saying that you're getting into finance, but also getting into the software engineering. You used to basically said it yourself. We had a discussion yesterday. About you were talking about how big tech companies and maybe I don't really know too much about it. You know more about it, but you said something on the lines of that lower middle class jobs are getting taken because of technology,
mhm.
and sooner or later we're not gonna have a lower middle class, bro. Like go ahead, go a little bit more into depth with that, dude.
Yeah, so like you were saying, a lot of the jobs that used to be regular, ordinary jobs that used to basically allow people to provide a living for their family or to provide food and shelter for their family are becoming obsolete. Like cashiers, truck drivers, those jobs will eventually be pushed out by nothing but self checkouts. You already see it happening everywhere you go, especially now with COVID. A lot of companies don't want to pay these employees because they're losing a lot of money in their eyes. A lot of these CEOs and a lot of these people sitting in the corporate offices, they want to hold on to that cash, right?
Right.
And they want to make it look like their companies are continuing to grow on paper, because that's how you continue to pull in investors, right?
Exactly.
Um, if on paper it looks like you're shrinking or like you're stagnating, that means that you're no longer growing, which means that investors are no longer going to continue to provide you with money, right?
Exactly.
You will no longer continue to grow. So ultimately, these companies, what really matters for them is their profit margins, right? They want to make sure that they maximize that, and having employees or having people that you have to pay, um, even minimum wage is too much for a lot of these companies, and it sucks because a lot of these people are very, very greedy. And I don't even necessarily. It sucks that the technology is what's doing it. I feel like because a lot of the people that are creating technology not because they're trying to push these people out of work, but because that's like their passion, right? Like,
Right. They're trying to make a convenience to everybody, but they're not really understanding the effects of everything, and you know what I mean. And
yeah,
I
it's how that technology is used at the end of the day
exactly.
that that ends up hurting people. Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing to see this shift because we grew up watching sci-fi and things of that nature where we're kind of being warned by these these minds that are forecasting what's going on now, and seeing this happen before our eyes, like the rise of AI and, like you said, more self checkout. The less and less people are going to be needed to go ahead and run these industries. These people were these big companies relied on these workers 20, 30 years ago, but now that everything is just drastically changing, it's just showing how useless kind of the human race is kind of becoming. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty tragic, to be honest. I wouldn't necessarily say it's becoming useless. I would say eventually, like, other jobs will be created because of technology. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of, like, we're in this weird transition period where we're at, like, there those jobs haven't been created yet, and all of the old jobs are being pushed out. You got me?
Yeah.
So we're that, like, borderline generation where it's like our generation is going to be responsible for coming up with those jobs and eventually figuring that out so that the next generation that comes after us will have a future.
They'll have that foundation set for them so that we can hurry up and make that transition, because you are right.
Yeah.
It's a weird position we're in right now. Like, people are just confused. Everybody's talking about Bitcoin for no damn reason, and it's just
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Everybody's all over the place. Either you're with it or you're not. You're gonna get left behind. And well, what do you think is like the our path in the future? What do you think is to come of these new jobs? Like you talking about these new jobs. What do you think will come of that?
Well, honestly, really, I think a lot of them will be tech based. I think a lot of them will have to do. I think the space industry, within the next 20 to 30 years, will be just booming. Right. I
Yeah.
think it'll be ridiculous, and I think a lot of jobs will be created around that industry, in the sense that, like Elon Musk is always talking about going to Mars, going to the moon, building a moon base, and then harvesting the resources from the moon, from the asteroids that are nearby, from Mars, to basically continue to like build crazy engineering projects, and to basically continue on like humanity, right?
Right.
Um, a lot of people still think that that's kind of like out there and kind of like crazy, but realistically speaking, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the iPhones that we have now were crazy and like out there. Like nobody would have ever thought that the internet would be this fast, that you would have ultra HD video that's better than, than your actual vision.
Yeah, the
Like,
exponential growth in technology within the past 10 years has just been crazy. Like from 2000 to about 2010, that was like a slow increase of how advanced technology got, but once 2010 hit, everybody had a smartphone. And now it just
yeah.
seems that everybody has a damn smartphone. And it's like if you don't have a smartphone, what are you doing?
Cameras are literally everywhere. If you're not on the internet, if you don't have a Twitter account, you're disconnected from the world, literally. You
Right.
know?
Exactly.
Twitter is the world, basically, at this point. It's kind of insane.
It's
Um,
kind of sad to see that Twitter is more influential than most of these media outlets nowadays. It's kind of weird. I'm seeing
no,
I'm seeing more people base their views mostly off of Twitter than actually doing their darn research. it's
no,
I don't know.
no, for real. It's crazy. It's it's crazy how much like power and influence Twitter has.
Yeah. Do you
Like they
think?
were literally,
Oh, go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead.
literally, they literally banned like Donald Trump, and that shit's hilarious to an extent, right? Because like they have the power to ban like presidents,
Exactly.
you know, and yeah, it's just
Yeah.
wild.
The crazy thing I'm seeing is just right now is just it's a very trying time because we're seeing all this transition. Yeah, we're seeing this transition in like in society, like with everything going on right now. It just everything just seems so divided, yet we need right now is the time that we need to come together the most, yet all of us are divided by politics or just different opinions based off of IA. Everything is all over the place right now, and I don't know where to keep my head. I don't want to choose sides. I'm just kind of here for the ride and just waiting on whatever it is to come, honestly, brother.
No, I feel that, man. I feel that. Honestly, like my whole thing is I'm just trying to make my bread, you know.
Making
I'm
that
just
bread is honestly.
I'm minding my business and doing what I got to do to provide for me and my family in the future. You feel me?
And the best thing that you could do is do it for yourself. At the end of the day, you're taking care of yourself. I mean, obviously, you're taking care of your stocks. You're taking care of your finances. You're taking care of your software engineering. I mean, you're almost graduated, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, I was just checking right before this to see how many credits I need, and I only need 19. So,
19.
uh, yeah. So basically, I'll be done here within like a year.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I wish I got like 60 more credits to go, but hey, we're gonna get there one day.
Hey, you got it. You got it. You got it.
One day. No, man, but all right. So seeing that you've been in San Francisco so long, I mean, are you seeing any contrasts to Southern California? Is there any like big differences that you noticed?
Dude, huge. Honestly, everything about NorCal and SoCal is completely different. The cultures, the vibe. It's just they're two different worlds. Like that's the only way that I could really put it. They're two completely different worlds. Like,
Yeah.
um, I don't even know where to start. Like SoCal has like a real like a I don't know. It's like a Hollywood beach town type of vibe, you know. But then
Yeah.
at the same time, you have like South Central. You have Inglewood. You have Compton, Gardena, Hawthorne. Like
Yeah,
all of that. You know what I'm saying? So like,
a lot of people don't understand that there's like when we meet people from LA, you kind of just call them, oh yeah, they're from LA, but there's actually like really different spots. You know, you have people from Long Beach, you have people from South Central, you have people from East LA, you have people from like Norwalk, people from Anaheim, and it's just like there's so many places that people have different dialects, different ways of acting. You know, people
yeah.
like I don't know how people are out there in San Francisco, but from the people that I've met, they're very much different than anybody I've met from Southern California.
Nah, yeah. Like out here, people have like a sense of community, and it's like a real Bay Area vibe. Like, the Bay Area is like the Bay Area. Like everybody here, like if somebody's from the Bay, like it doesn't like if there's a rapper that comes out of the Bay, it doesn't matter where in the Bay they came out of. Everybody in the Bay is gonna fuck with them because they came out of the Bay. Or like, all these tech companies. Are in the Bay Area. Everybody knows that, and so everybody understands that like the Bay Area has the most influence over the world, right? In terms of like media influence online, because all of the tech companies are in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So all the people who are working there are from the Bay Area,
Now,
and so of all the people working.
what companies started over there in the Bay Area? Because like, you're talking about all these like how like big tech is out there in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. What companies like kind of laid the foundation to be able to have like the biggest tech area basically in the whole world?
Well, honestly, we can start off with Google, Facebook, Twitter. Those are honestly the big three that are out here. You have Tesla that was based out here for a cool minute. I think they moved to Texas, if I'm not mistaken. You have, I want to say Amazon was out here for a cool minute. I could be wrong on that. But I know that they're based out of Washington now.
Oh, okay.
But
So
basically, all of those like really big tech companies are all based on like the northern west coast, northwest. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like
Okay.
up here.
Yeah, and
So
I've looked into that. I mean, there's shows like Silicon Valley, which I mean, I never really watched it, but I understand that there's like a bunch of like nerdy kids that are just like they make a funny little show about kids who code up there in Silicon Valley who are making stupid bread. It kind of interests me, but then at the same time, I too, experienced some coding classes, and I'm gonna be honest. How do you do it, bro? How do you just stick to coding? I can't even just get through my C++ homework for the most basic engineering engineering class. How do you get through these advanced lines of codes, bro?
okay, well for starters, I'm gonna say this because I started off with C++, and C++ is probably the last one language you want to start with. And I really don't understand why like some schools make you start with C++, and I really want to say it's because they want to weed out everybody who like they feel like, because I feel like a lot of people, if they understand like, I don't know, I feel like computer scientists and programmers like to like try to almost make it like a secret, the
How,
fact that you don't really need to be a genius or that smart to get into programming. It's like, and so what I feel like schools like to do is they like to make the entry level classes really really hard, so that it seems way more difficult than it really is. But in reality, what programming is not that difficult. I would say it's more common sense than anything. And if you like puzzles and if you like thinking outside of the box, type of like challenges, then programming is like it's the thing for you.
well, I mean, coming from someone who has no common sense, that's probably why I barely passed the damn class. Honestly, I don't know how you do it, but obviously you're doing your thing, man.
Yeah.
But where do you plan on taking that, dude? Like, what's your main goal within the industry, brother?
Realistically speaking, I mean, there's a couple different ways I want to go with it. Um, Honestly, engineering has always been another one of my like something that I always thought would be really cool to get into, especially like anything having to do with space. And I know that, with computer programming, you can easily land a job at like a Boeing, a NASA, a SpaceX, something along those lines. So I think that would be something that would really, really interest me, and would really motivate me to like show up to work every single day, you know?
Oh yeah.
Just knowing that I'm like working to send people to space. That would be really cool. Another thing that I think would be really cool is I actually have this mentor right now. He's this professor from the University of Melbourne, and he's actually been helping me kind of like work towards achieving my goals in the sense of like trying to get towards landing a job at like a SpaceX or something like that. Um, but he also mentioned, because I told him that I was trying to work on a stock trading algorithm a couple months back. Didn't really work out too well. Still working on that, but um, he was telling me that he has a friend who basically does that for a living. And he's based out of the UK, but he was basically telling me that he would put me in touch with him, and he said that that would be that's another industry that I guess is really looking for talent right now for programmers. So he said that that's another thing I should really look into, and I think I will do that because
Yeah.
that's the bread. That's where the bread's at right there.
Well, you got the mind for it, bro. You got the mind and the ambition. I mean, you're patient enough to go ahead and learn those difficult languages and stick through this program. I mean, obviously you're gonna get to where you got to get to, bro. But I mean, speaking of that, doing all this code, I mean, it stressed me out. How do you get through it? Like, what do you do like on your free time to go ahead and just like take off that stress? I already know your eyes be hurting.
Nah, for real. Honestly, for me personally, what I like to do to kind of de-stress. So this is how I like to work. Honestly, what I'll do is if I know I have a project that I have to work on, I'll spend a day, like a few hours, 3 to 4 hours, just sitting down one day, like really trying to understand what it is I have to do, and kind of planning out exactly how I'm gonna do it in code, um, like on paper first, before I even like code anything up. So that way I know exactly what it is I'm gonna have to code, and how it is I'm gonna expect it to work, as opposed to just jumping right in, and like just trying to figure it out as I go. That's usually how I get really, really confused um, and like clutter minded. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's usually where I end up fucking up the most. Because like I don't do any sort of planning beforehand. So I like to do that first, and then when I do that, honestly, man, I'll be real. Computer science and programming, at least for me, is pretty chill, considering the fact that I usually only work 4 to 5 hours a day, and then the rest of my days usually spent like just kind of chilling, honestly smoking weed, playing video games, watching podcasts, like just kind of hanging out with the homies for the most part. And then, I could always put more work in if I really wanted to, but after 4 to 5 hours of coding, I'm usually pretty burnt. So.
Yeah, man. I couldn't imagine, dude, like writing down those codes, just having to, walk through yourself, getting from the if statement and then to the else statement. I mean, I understand. Maybe I'm talking real like easy terminology, and like more about. I don't even know. I can't really talk to you about coding, but I couldn't even imagine the stress your eyes are going through, man. Like you don't have glasses. You don't wear glasses when you code.
I don't actually. I don't. Honestly, though, I can definitely tell the difference or feel the difference in my eyes even just over the last year. And it's kind of ridiculous that sitting at a computer for this long can have that kind of effect on your eyes.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I feel like maybe in the future that's gonna become a bigger problem within kids our age, especially people who are getting into the industry like yours. People who are just sitting at their computers just for long periods of time, just not even exposing their eyes to any sunlight. It's just straight. I don't know what you call the screen, but coming from someone who's played video games multiple hours a day, it hurts my eyes, and I couldn't imagine just going through the stress of having to do that, but as a job. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. And honestly, that's another thing that it's funny that you mentioned. A lot of programmers don't tend to exercise, which is very true. Actually, that's not that's no.
Well, that's not
cap.
that's not where I was going. I was gonna say they don't get out too much. I mean, I know
They don't.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I honestly make an effort to like to get out personally, like and to like work out and stuff like that. Like I was surfing, especially when I was back in SoCal. Like that's kind of I can't get enough of that. Honestly, surfing is like if there's something that I could honestly do for a living, it would be that. Cause
Yeah.
Not for real.
That's really cool. And man, that surfing is difficult, man. I mean, how long have you been surfing? You've been surfing your whole life?
No, definitely not my whole life. I honestly started surfing maybe like 9 months ago.
Wow.
I want to say. Yeah, I haven't been surfing that long, but because I was doing jiu-jitsu for a while, up until COVID started, and this guy that I trained with at jiu-jitsu, he I guess was a surf instructor, and long story short, he was just basically, because I told him I'd be really down to learn how to surf, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'll teach you how to surf, and I'll give you the stuff to learn how to surf." Um, he was like, for free. And I was like, I bet. So I had no excuse not to learn how to surf at that point.
Right. I mean, obviously, he was giving
yeah.
you the free game. And he was like, why not take it?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
and COVID was starting, so I was just like, at this point, like, it's good exercise. It's fun. It's something I always wanted to learn. So I started to pick it up and picked it up pretty quick. And I can't get enough of it, honestly.
And that's
like
cool.
all I think about.
That's cool that you were able to like to find like a little something that you can go ahead and blow off some steam, especially working those hours, software engineering. I mean, man, I mean, I would want to surf one day maybe, but oh man, after that one experience, like I told you about in Hawaii, that big rash I got on my stomach, I can't imagine just doing that again. It's horrible.
Nah, bro. You need a wetsuit or something, man.
Yeah.
You can't be going out there shirtless.
Are those wetsuits comfortable?
Yeah, low-key. They're warm, too.
Damn. I might have to invest into one. I've always wanted to go, I wanted to go to Hawaii and actually surf out there, but when it's cold, like when it's super cold. For some reason,
I don't think it ever really gets cold in Hawaii, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know why I said that. That was kind of dumb. No, but yeah. One of these days I'd love to go and maybe try surfing, but yeah, I mean, you were talking about jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, that's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or is it like the regular jiu-jitsu? I'm not too familiar with martial arts.
Yeah, no, I was doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a while, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what made you go into jiu-jitsu?
Well, honestly, man, like I always wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. Like I did karate growing up as a kid. Like up until like maybe like 11, and realistically speaking, I stopped because I told my mom this. I was like, this stuff like realistically isn't gonna work in like a real fight. I was like, can I learn jiu-jitsu, right? Because I knew like I watched like the UFC here and there whenever like it was on TV for free on Spike. I don't know if you ever saw that back in the day.
Yeah, UFC back when it was on Spike. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. And they would always talk about jiu-jitsu and how effective it was and how it was basically like the most effective martial arts or whatever. So I was just like, well, if that's what those dudes are using, like that's kind of what I want to learn, right? Like that'll help you defend yourself in any type of situation, no matter what, right? So, but my mom was always like super against it, and it was super expensive. So as soon as I turned 18 and I could and I found a place that I could like train jiu-jitsu, I started trying to like learn how to train jiu-jitsu. And I just kind of started training on and off ever since, to be honest.
Now, when you started, did you kind of see like maybe a shift in like the way you carried yourself, maybe kind of in your patience level, maybe your discipline? Were you able to like see maybe a shift in that? Because from what I hear, whenever you join any kind of martial arts or kind of like any sports, you kind of get this sense of discipline and you start changing your ways of thinking. And I feel maybe you're able to get off some steam. I mean, has there been any sort of change within that?
No, honestly, man, definitely. Realistically speaking, there's a lot of people who are walking around who are low-key like savages, and you would never know it looking at them walking around in the street. You would never know it. You wouldn't know it in a million years. But there's some people who are, even females. There's a lot of females that I know who train, who fuck up like dudes who are on average like 150 pounds heavier than them, and it's just like, I want nothing to do with you.
Honestly, I went to lunch with my lady a couple months ago. We were actually we were looking at this apartment with one of her friends. We were just talking, whatever, having this conversation with this other couple, and they were both talking, and her coworker was just really, really aggressive, and I was just like asking, I was like, what do you guys do? Oh, we do jiu-jitsu. And I was like, oh man, like wow, like, and I'm just surprised, like anybody. Like, you could get into the wrong fight at the wrong time with the wrong person and just completely get your ass kicked without even, like understanding the power that person might have.
No, literally.
So
I have like a story about this one dude. Um, he was this short little like Asian kid, like definitely like 30, 40 pounds lighter than me. Um, and you know, I forget what his name was, but we used to train together. He was super cool guy. Um, but this dude was like the toughest guy that I had ever like met for to this day, hands down. Like this dude would not tap for shit. Um, would go to the end, like had no quit whatsoever. And it's just crazy because if you were to see him walking down the street, you would think, oh, this is just some like nerdy like dude who's like into anime, because he was like super into anime, right? Super into anime. You just think he's some dude who's like super into anime, nerdy dude. Little do you know that dude will put you in a rear naked choke and put you to sleep in like 0.5 seconds.
it's the most quiet ones, dude. Like honestly,
Yeah.
I've met so many loudmouths that get their ass kicked. Like
Yeah.
it's not even funny. Most people do not know how to fight, and they want to act like they know how to fight.
No, literally, for real.
Oh
It's
man.
usually the people who know how to fight who don't want to get into a fight because they're just like, I have no point to get into a fight with you. Like,
It's
why would I?
it's the discipline, and that's why I asked. Because I mean, hearing these stories from people that have done jiu-jitsu, like my friend Rome and a couple other people that I've gone to school with, they told me like, dude, like you get to the point where you just don't want to fight, and you only need to. Like the only purpose of jiu-jitsu is so that you use it when you need to.
Yeah, no, honestly, the way that I look at it a lot of the times is when people are confident enough in their training, that when they get into like a street fight or like an altercation on the street or something like that, it usually goes like this. It's like you already know in your head, the outcome of that situation and how it's gonna go. And so in your head, you have nothing to prove to anybody, right? Whereas typically when two people get into a fight, it's because in both of their heads they want to prove to the other guy that they're better than them, because they don't even know in their head, and to themselves as well. They want to prove to themselves that like, yeah, like I whooped his ass, right? But
It's
if you
a
go into that situation already knowing that you're gonna whoop his ass, it's just kind of like, all right, you know, like, do you like? You don't want to do this, you know,
right.
like you. It's. I think that's more the mentality that a lot of people go into it.
I don't think anyone necessarily wants to get into a fight. I feel like maybe
Mm.
just people just want to prove something. And that's
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem.
Mhm.
People
Exactly.
just need to chill and just take a damn breath, smoke some weed or some shit.
You know,
Yeah,
something, man.
it happens like that, man. But Jesus Christ, it makes me want to get into jujitsu.
No, jujitsu's dope. I would 100% recommend it for
Uh,
anybody.
yeah, I mean, how much are the classes, dude?
It honestly depends where you go. The place that I was training at for a while was like 150 a month, which is a little pricey. I'm not gonna lie, you know, can
Yeah.
be pricey.
I mean,
Um, but
I
it's
mean,
worth it.
yeah, it's totally worth it. I mean, to be able to just, I mean, I don't want to kick anybody's ass, but I don't want to get my ass kicked. So, I mean,
No, yeah.
that'll be
No,
cool.
no, no. Yeah, no. Honestly, a lot of jiu-jitsu guys too are really, really friendly, especially to the new guys. Like, they're not trying to kick your ass, they're trying to help you, you know? Like, jiu-jitsu guys, if anything, are trying to teach everybody everything they know, because at the end of the day, like, if the other dude knows what you know, and they're gonna help you get better, right? Because now you have to figure out how to, like, beat that. You get
Well,
me?
well, thinking about it, if you really dive deep into what this is, it's self defense class. So I mean, it's not attack; it's self defense.
Yeah.
If you really get into it,
Yeah, yeah. At the bare bones, yeah.
at the
That's,
bare bones. I
that's
mean, yeah, that's the
what it's
backbone of the whole
essentially.
thing, just to make sure that you keep yourself solid out of harm's way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, man. So, man, let me ask you something, man. So,
Mm-hmm.
going from stocks to
Mm-hmm.
finance to software engineering to surfing. I mean, how are you able to juggle all this stuff? I mean, like, what do you do to go ahead and ease yourself of your stress most of the time? Other than weed, what do you usually do?
Honestly, not a whole lot, dude. That's kind of like, I'm like a really high pace type of guy. Like, I need to have a lot of things going for me at all times. Like, I don't know if you remember me in high school. Like, I was at school every day at 7 a.m. and didn't leave until like 6 p.m. every day, and then would go home and do homework every day until like 3 a.m., and then we'll rinse and repeat. Sometimes I would pull all-nighters. Like, it was kind of ridiculous. And I think, I don't know, I just have this drive that I need to get shit done. And so, like, for me, I know a lot of people talk about, like, smoking weed or, like, slows them down and makes them lazy, this and this and that. But honestly, for me, if anything, like, it balances me out personally. Um,
Right.
and so the reason I do the stuff that I do and not more is probably because I smoke weed. If not, I'd probably be doing more,
Mm.
realistically speaking, which is kind of crazy. Um, but I just I can't sit still. Honestly, I can't just be sitting around
Yeah, and that's just you as a
unless I'm
person.
smoking weed.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
just how
that's
I
just
am. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a cool trait to have. I mean, that's just like natural ambition, and that's cool. You keep yourself going, keep yourself occupied. It seems like you're always getting stuff done, and that's a good thing. It's a good trait to have, brother.
Yeah, no, definitely.
No,
Gotta
man.
keep that
So
going.
so, going into stocks, what? Let me ask you this: do you think that with everything going on right now, with all these big tech companies going up, and Tesla just surpassed, like, it's almost at $900 now.
Hmm.
Do you think that this is all gonna have to make a big correction soon?
Uh, I realistically speaking, I just really think it depends on the outcome of like how this whole political situation plays out in our country and how COVID turns out. Because I think a lot of people these days base their trading off of speculation, not so much like actual numbers or charts or anything like that. I mean, like algorithmic traders are different, and I think that accounts for like what, like something about like 60 or 70% of the market or something ridiculous like that nowadays. Which is a large chunk, which means that like if the numbers are right, then the market will correct itself, and if um, but realistically speaking, I think that the market will probably just continue to grow. I think a lot of these tech companies have nowhere to go but up. I mean, is like the only car company who's manufacturing electric vehicles, um, like wholesale, like
In America,
like mass
yeah.
producing them. Yeah, mass production of electric vehicles. There's Neo and a couple other ones coming out of Japan or out of China now.
Yeah, speaking of
Um,
Neo's making really big moves right now. They just shipped out a bunch of cars over here. I think last month or something, and
yeah,
I mean it dropped the stock, but now stocks are rising. And today I think it just hit its all time high of like 55.
yeah. No, I actually I hold a couple shares of Neo, and I think that has nothing but room to grow. Honestly,
Yeah, these tech
realistically
companies are
speaking.
these tech companies is just it's amazing to see how like
Yeah.
these tech companies are just booming, like out of all of this pandemic. These
Yeah.
retail stores are losing money,
Yeah,
theaters
no,
are
you gotta think about it like when the Industrial Revolution in like the early like 1910s and 1920s was happening with like Ford and all them, when the car was first like originally coming around, that was considered like a tech company back then, right? And you gotta think like that happened, and then later on came Honda, and then came Nissan, and then came BMW, and all these other like foreign car companies and manufacturers that ended up eventually taking over our markets, right?
right.
And so that's kind of how I'm looking at Neo. Realistically speaking, is like this giant, the sleeping giant that's gonna pop in the future, and it's basically gonna probably take over, if not surpass Tesla, because Tesla has a tendency to make promises that they can't keep, like that Roadster. Where's that at, right? Or the Cybertruck, where's that at? Both of those vehicles were both promised to have been like released by now, and neither one of them are out. So
So what you're saying is basically just Tesla is just all hype. Is basically what you're saying.
I want to say Tesla's a lot of hype, and the only reason that they're all hype is because they've monopolized that market right now, and there's no other competitor. There's nobody else that's on their level right now. They're the only ones. And so people look at them as like the cutting edge and like of tech and of that car market. But if you have somebody like Neo or some other car company that comes in and basically says, hey, we'll do exactly what they do, um, but for a little cheaper, and we'll give you more variety. I mean,
Yeah,
who's not gonna start?
China's gonna definitely figure that one out. They're gonna figure out a way to just make the electric car cheaper, and I don't know. I mean, look at how much debt we're into China. I mean, obviously China
It's
is ahead of the game in every aspect of tech.
No, 100%, and it's sad. It's kind of scary, honestly, because China is the communist country, and they do have a really really tight grip on their people, and they are committing like an entire genocide with their Muslim population right now.
Oh wait,
Um,
really? Wait? Go into that, bro.
yeah, so it's kind of it's really swept under the rug a lot of the times. But if anybody does a quick Google search and searches China Muslim genocide, you'll see that right now they've been arresting all Chinese Muslims and basically sending them to internment camps. And nobody's basically been hearing from any of them since. I think this was like a really, really big thing a couple years back. Um,
Wow.
I don't know. I'm sure it's still going on 100%. I just know that China is like they do a lot of fucked up shit, man, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
And so
I'm seeing it right here.
they're
Look, they're saying on ABC News back in June 29th this past year, China conducting mass sterilization on Muslim minorities that could amount to genocide. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. You know,
So
the crazy thing is, the media will cover certain stories, but then you have things like this that nobody talks about and you have to look up yourself.
yeah, no, and it's because the media is honestly they are partially controlled by like the government to the extent that like they know that if the public um gets angry and starts harboring like negative sort of like sentiment towards China, that could eventually in the long run lead to even worse like political relations with China, which inevitably, God forbid, but inevitably could eventually lead to a war or something like that, which nobody wants, right? Um, but if they start publishing news stories like that, obviously people in the U.S. are going to be like, yo, we got to do something about this. Somebody's going to say something. And China's too big. China's pretty scary. And nobody really wants to poke them, or to really like antagonize them or start anything because their president, I mean, he's in there for life, He's a dictator. So, he's a king. Like, and it's basically like if you had Donald Trump up there as president for life, or somebody like like that.
Yeah, someone with those ideologies. They're those very monarchy like idea, like one person rules, the one person has control, and they're the ones that have the say, and there's no kind of say in society.
Exactly, So if you
Whoa.
have somebody like that, you think that if somebody pisses him off, he's not going to want to go start a war. At the end of the day, it doesn't really affect him until it gets to him directly, So
So what do you see in our future relationship, like the US's relationship to China? Where do you see that going? Especially with all this tech industry booming, and this just the future coming. Where do you see our relationship heading?
well, honestly, I know that like the Democratic Party really really likes keeping like peaceful relations with China. So for the near future, at least, I don't see us like really antagonizing them or really doing anything to try to stop them or anything that they're up to. Um, I honestly could see us trying to come to like trade agreements and peaceful like resolutions to a lot of the things that they've been doing recently. Like another thing that they've been doing recently is trying to expand their borders by building like small little islands out into the Chinese in forget exactly where, but basically off their coast. So what they'll do is they'll build one island off their coast, and every time you like claim a piece of land, what that does is extend your ocean boundaries that much further. So every time they do that, they'll do that, and then they'll go to wherever that new boundary is, and then build another island, right? And then they'll put military bases on all those islands so that eventually, um, they have like a super expansive like ocean territory. You know what I'm saying?
That's amazing to think about. I had no idea that that's how it works. So basically, okay, so is that basically how when the United States claimed Puerto Rico and that kind of territory is ours, basically, right? From like the sea to, because I'm not really too familiar with the borders or anything like that. So I mean, hearing this is it's pretty wild to know that you can just go ahead, take over a piece of land like that and expound your ocean boundaries. That's just, I mean, thinking about how big the ocean is, you're expanding your ocean boundaries. Just saying that alone just creates like the biggest just headache in my head. I don't know why.
You know, like no, it's crazy. It's honestly it's wild.
They're powerful. Like I don't think people understand how controlling China is over America.
No,
Like
nobody.
we are completely getting fucked by China right now.
No, 100%. And it's honestly a sad thing. Like a lot of those middle class jobs that we were talking about earlier, honestly, did get lost to China. Like that's it's tragic. It really is. A lot of the reasons why this gap in inequality is it's happening so rapidly in our country is because a lot of the jobs that used to like basically buffer that gap um have gone away. They no longer exist, right? And so because they no longer exist, because none of those manufacturing jobs because are no longer important, no longer matter in this country, and because they've been exported to places where they can do it for a lot cheaper, you now have two, essentially what seems to be two separate like socioeconomic classes in our country, like the lower economic class and the higher economic class, and a few people in the middle. But most of those people are starting to get pushed out onto either one end or the other. Um, so it's just kind of like it's kind of hard to see where we're going in terms of like a country. We really need that middle class if we want to succeed. We can't really expect to succeed as a country if we don't have a middle class, because honestly that middle class is what keeps the economy going, you know.
It's the
That's
we're the bridge between the poor and the rich.
exactly, you know, you need that middle class. Yeah, it's 100% necessary.
And
But
it's crazy that you say that. I mean, like, you mean both of us. I mean, I think I could say this confidently. We both pretty much come from the lower middle class background. You know what I mean? We both went to Sarah. We can't. I'm not gonna say the school we went to was the nicest Catholic school that
yeah.
that was around, but it was affordable. It was affordable.
Yeah.
We were able to. We didn't starve. I don't. I didn't starve. Did you starve?
Nah,
Okay,
I
good.
didn't start
I'm so
yet.
glad.
Yeah.
But I completely understand. I mean, our families are basically middle class workers, and to see this shift into the future is just saddening because my family members either will stay middle class or are gonna go higher.
Hmm.
And hearing you say this, if they stay middle class, then what are they gonna do for work? And it just kind of, it brings a worry, but at the same time, it also brings other opportunity for people to make bigger changes and see about just bringing more money in. There's just so many opportunities right now, brother.
No, definitely. Too many opportunities not to be taken advantage of.
Too many people. And I honestly believe right now people are in a state where they don't know what's going on. Especially with everything going on in the Capitol. Everything is just crazy, and everybody's just so worried about different things when we're not even realizing that something is definitely changing, and we're not worried about that change. We're
Yeah.
focused. We're too focused on other shit. But man, honestly, brother, it was. I'm glad I was able to have this conversation with you, brother. I mean, I had no idea about that mass genocide going on in China, but you've enlightened me. I don't understand how you do it, bro. You're a software engineer. You're a surfer. You know, you. I mean, you do it all, dude. How do you do it? I wish I was like you, brother. But I just want to thank you again for being on this on today, dude. Today was our first little show. I'm pretty sure if we sounded shitty, I apologize. But if we're scrambling, we're gonna go ahead and try this again next week. So if you guys want to tune in for the next guest, I'd really appreciate it. But I appreciate you, Anthony. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Is there anything you want to say to the listeners before we take off?
Nah, man. Just everybody stay safe out here with COVID.
Yes, definitely. Everybody, just make sure you gloves on, masks on, take your shower, wipe your ass, do what you got to do to stay clean. All right. Yeah. All right, brother. It was a pleasure. You have a good one, man.
You too, bro. Take it easy.